JustinGaethje calls for UFC title fight again. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Punchlytics. Today, let's talk about JustinGaethje calling for a UFC title fight again. After this weekend's UFC 313 card, where JustinGaethje got back in the win column with a dominant victory over Rafael Fiziev, a message was posted from Gaethje's account directed at DanaWhite and the UFC, give him a title fight. I won 3 out of my last 4, only losing in an exhibition fight. I have to fight for the belt, DanaWhite. I'm ready. The way the post was worded led some fans to believe it wasn't Gaethje himself, but rather his manager, Ali Abdelaziz, using his account. Heading into Saturday's fight, Gaethje was open about not knowing if a win over Fiziev would secure him the #1 contender spot. However, following his UFC 313 victory, he now feels he deserves the next title shot. That being said, Arman Tsarukyan, in an interview with MMA media outlet, the MMA Hour, disagreed, saying it wouldn't be fair if Gaethje gets the next shot. Islam Makhachev has openly talked about wanting to fight Gaethje next, so the UFC has some incredible options in the lightweight division. Names like Arman Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira, JustinGaethje, and now Ilia Topuria all want a shot at the title. But none of them have fights booked yet. It'll be interesting to see who the UFC selects as Makhachev's next opponent. Fiziev appeared on Tuesday's episode of the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani, where he threw his support behind Gaethje, saying, "If Gaethje vs. Makhachev happens, I'm on Team Gaethje. I want him to fight for the belt. I think he deserves it more than anyone in the division. If he fights Islam, I'm with him." As for Fiziev, after suffering his second loss to Gaethje, he's now considering a major change. "I'm starting to think about changing weight classes. I cut weight very easily this time, even on short notice. If I drop down, those guys will have trouble. Everybody will be in trouble." He went on to reveal he's been considering a move to 145 for quite some time. With that division getting ready to crown a new champion, it could be an interesting shift. For him, Alex Pereira won't last at heavyweight according to Daniel Cormier. Alex Pereira won't last at heavyweight. At least, according to Daniel Cormier. This past weekend, Magomed Ankalaev captured UFC gold with a decision win over Alex Pereira, bringing an end to Poatan's light heavyweight reign. With Pereira focused on reclaiming his belt, discussions about a potential move to heavyweight seem to be on the back burner for now. However, Daniel Cormier doesn't think Pereira would have much success at heavyweight. During the latest episode of Good Guy, Bad Guy with Chael Sonnen, Cormier stated that if Ankalaev's pressure was too much for Pereira, dealing with heavyweights would be overwhelming. "I don't think he's strong enough to go against bigger guys." The pressure Ankalaev generated without any real danger coming back at him. Those heavyweights would just walk right through what he was throwing. While some fans weren't happy with Ankalaev's clinch-heavy approach, Kamaru Usman put the blame on Pereira during the latest episode of Pound for Pound with Henry Cejudo. "I'm not mad at the 3-2 decision for Ankalaev, but I think in that 5th round, Alex Pereira came out with a little more urgency. He looked like he was trying to fight and finish, but Ankalaev kept pushing him against the fence and wearing him down. Hey, it's your job to get off the fence. If you're not doing that, why should the ref save you?" Henry Cejudo believes Pereira's rockstar lifestyle finally caught up with him. In response to Usman, Triple C added, "I think Alex Pereira's lifestyle is catching up to him. The traveling, the shows, the skits, everything he's doing outside of fighting. It's not helping him." His body even looked different. He looked a little pudgier, a little thicker in the face. "We have to give credit to Magomed Ankalaev. He stayed composed, didn't react to Pereira's feints, and kept his hands up the whole time." Cejudo also pointed out that Pereira struggles against southpaws. Given Pereira's dominance in the division, DanaWhite has already confirmed he'll get an immediate rematch. After his UFC 313 victory, Ankalaev seemed pleased with his performance, saying, "I just re-watched my fight. 20 minutes of it was striking, and for most of those 20 minutes, I was the one applying pressure. The game plan was to use wrestling to set up my striking, and I landed the hardest shots. I landed more significant strikes. Are you interested in seeing this rematch?" As for Alex Pereira, he seems to be in good spirits despite the loss, continuously posting videos of himself dancing and enjoying life the way it should be. Khamzat Chimaev talks about toughest fight in the UFC. Khamzat Chimaev has absolutely dominated many of his opponents in the octagon. 5 of his 8 UFC wins have come in the very first round, but fighters like John Phillips, Gilbert Burns, and Kamaru Usman managed to make it out of the opening frame, Burns and Usman even taking him to a decision. During an interview with Azamat Shev, Chimaev was asked who his toughest opponent has been. It was probably Usman. He defended against my wrestling very well. His wrestling is good. He defended my takedowns and didn't let me choke him. I tried to choke him for 5 minutes, but his defense was too good. In that fight, Chimaev went 4 for 12 on takedown attempts while racking up over 7 minutes of control time. However, just as he mentioned, he couldn't secure a submission. Since Chimaev's win over Robert Whittaker in October and Dricus du Plessis' victory over Sean Strickland in February, there has been no official word on when a Chimaev versus DDP fight might happen. Despite that, all signs point to Chimaev being next in line for a title shot. DanaWhite and the UFC accused of scamming fans. It looks like the UFC and DanaWhite are being called out for allegedly misleading casual fans during the main event at UFC 313 between Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev. Near the end of round 5, the UFC displayed the unofficial strike stats on screen, showing Pereira landing 76 significant strikes to Ankalaev's 64. Mixed with the commentators discussing how they believed Pereira had done enough to win, this led many casual fans to believe he was on track for victory. To add to the controversy, the UFC reportedly aired a betting promo encouraging fans to place wagers on the fight, highlighting that Pereira was the underdog. Some claim the broadcast team even read out updated odds, allegedly telling viewers they could still place bets after the fight had ended, right up until the official decision was announced. Another detail that raised eyebrows was how long it took for the scorecards to be read. Many fans noted that there was an unusual delay before Bruce Buffer announced the result. With all these factors combined, many people are furious at the UFC, accusing them of misleading casual fans into thinking Pereira was winning while also directing them to betting sponsors. One user on TikTok called out this tactic, posting a video criticizing the situation. One of the most disgusting things I've ever seen during a UFC main event happened at UFC 313. With 21 seconds left in round 5, they displayed the round-by-round strike numbers. These stats were shockingly inaccurate. At the end of the fight, John Anik was announcing that the odds were on the board. Pereira was listed as 1/100, and he made sure to emphasize that you could still place bets before the decision was read. The user continued, stating, the UFC and Vegas knew that tons of casual fans were watching Pereira in this 5-round fight, so they showed completely false stats, making it seem like Pereira was outstriking Ankalaev in 4 of the 5 rounds. Then, right after that, they highlighted his betting odds and encouraged fans to place bets. Then, suddenly, the decision was unanimous, 49-46 on one scorecard, and it took forever to be read. It's just suspicious. When the official fight stats were released, they painted a very different picture. The unofficial numbers had shown Ankalaev landing 64 significant strikes by the end of round 5, but the final official stats credited him with 94, a 30-strike difference. Meanwhile, Pereira's total only increased by 5 from the unofficial to official count. This led many to believe that the UFC deliberately misrepresented the stats to influence live betting. So, do you think the UFC scammed fans by misleading them with commentary, strike counts, and an unexpected gambling ad? Here's what the MMA community had to say. The unofficial stats are always inaccurate, but why did it take so long to read a unanimous decision? Right after they showed Pereira was plus money? When a Pereira fight is on, you know casual fans are watching, and they might not realize those stats aren't final. They did the same thing for Strickland versus Adesanya. They had Izzy leading in. The mid-fight stat counter. I thought the exact same thing. First time I ever heard them announce that you could still bet before the decision. Super suspicious. Once again, we're not outright claiming the UFC did anything wrong. It could have been an innocent mistake. But many fans in the community weren't happy with how this played out. Some argue that the UFC is taking advantage of newer fans who might not fully understand the scoring system. What do you think about this situation? Let us know in the comments.